Okay, I call the meeting to a start, and as we begin I'd like to acknowledge the Noongar people as the traditional custodians of the place where we meet and of the southwest of our state. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. The first item is announcements by the President, and I will don't need to welcome anyone to the gallery because the gallery is, they've already been welcomed, and they're all officers of the Shire, so that I don't think we need to worry about the public. I'll just ask you to be a little bit patient, and rather than call out and tell me what to do, maybe just raise your hands and I'll ask advice from our CEO. Attendance, apologies. Nil. Approved leave of absence, and approved leave of absence has been granted to the Shire President, Nil Bugie, for this meeting. Okay, declarations of interest. Division 6 of the Local Government Act requires that a member must disclose the interest of the member and the nature of the interest in writing before the meeting or immediately before the matter is discussed. Do we have any?
Mr Chair, no, I've not received any for this meeting as yet.
And are there any late ones? Okay. As there's no public here, we will not need to do public question time. Presentations, petitions. Beg your pardon?
You need to.
Yeah.
Oh.
Response to public questions taken on notice. Sorry, I forgot to read that. Are there any? And public question time, there's none. Okay, thank you. Presentations, petitions, nil. Presentations, nil. Deputations, nil. Delegates, deputation. Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's a little unusual, however, we received a deputation from Mr Sam Williams, who is a town planning and project management consultant, who has requested that I read out a deputation as he can't be here for this evening, and it's in relation to the scheme amendment for the Mohanji Australia team. And if someone can help me, item 9.5.4. And for the record, the deputation reads, "Hello councillors and staff, my name is Sam Williams and I am a town planning consultant. On behalf of my client, the Mohanji Foundation Australia, I would like to talk to item 9.5.4 of tonight's council meeting. As the author of the scheme amendment request for this item, I have worked closely with the Shire's administration in preparing this document. I have viewed the officer's recommendation and commend the officer on a well-prepared report and sound recommendation to council. I encourage the council to support their officer recommendation to enable this amendment to proceed." End.
Thank you. Delegates' reports? Nil. Conference reports? Nil. Confirmation of previous minutes? Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Omaday.
Mr President, I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Council held on the 12th September 2024 be confirmed as a true and accurate record.
Seconder. Councillor Wilcox. Any speakers? Anyone speak in favour of it? Anyone speaking against it? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. Motions of which previous notice have been given? There are nil. For the officers' reports, now it does say for the interest of the gallery, but we are being recorded, so I will read this part out. I'll explain how we're going to consider the agenda items for the meeting. All councillors have had the agenda for a week, giving us time to thoroughly review each item. This meeting is the only time that councillors are able to formally debate agenda items, and soon I'll read out each item listed in the agenda, and any councillor will be able to identify an agenda item which they wish to debate. These items will be listed on the board behind me. All items not identified by councillors to be debated will be moved in accordance with the officer's recommendations in one motion as listed in the agenda and moved en bloc for voting purposes. If your item is not listed on the board and is moved en bloc, it will be passed as per the officer recommendation. Following this, council will consider the remaining items in agenda order. So I'll go through these now one at a time. 9.1.1, endorsement of Western Australian Local Government Associations election advocacy.
Yes, Mr President, I'd like to speak to that.
Remove that. Thank you. 9.2.1, proposed lease to the Manjimup Trail Bike Hub, Mottram Street, Manjimup. Okay. Shire financial payments for August 2024. Oh, sorry, did I skip one? Oh, sorry. 9.2.2, proposed transfer and new lease, the Walpole Family Centre Inc. to Regional Early Education Development Incorporated. Shire financial payments for August 2024. Monthly statement of financial activity, August 2024. Okay. 9.5.1, application for a retrospective approval for land clearing at Lot 43, Quenda Drive, Northcliffe. Removed. Thank you. Proposed industry rural workshop at Lot 16, 788 Middlesex Road, Middlesex, 952. 953, delegated planning decisions, August 2024. 954, request for support and to adopt for the purposes of advertising proposed scheme amendment, Lot 4, 6857 South Coast Highway, Walpole. 9.7.1, proposed appointment of fire control officers for the 2024-2025 bushfire season. 9.9.1 is absolute. 9.9.2 is absolute. 9.9.3, proposed trailhead in Walpole Pioneer Park. 9.9.4, proposed Lottery West application, completion of the building works, Pemberton Community Hub, Maya. Okay, move down to the rest of the items. 9.15.1, which is absolute. 9.16.1, which is absolute. 9.16.2, which is absolute. 9.16.3 and 9.16.4 are all absolute. You can record those. Okay, so we move on to the first item, 9.1.1, endorsement of Western...
Mr President?
Oh, sorry, we've got to do this, don't we, first? Can I have someone to move the...
Mr Acting President,
Yes, sorry.
I move that Council adopt the recommendations contained in the Council officers and committee reports on pages 1 to 97 of the agenda, with the exception of those on the board.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Amadei, seconder. Councillor Wilcox. Anyone want to speak in favour or against? I put the motion. All those in favour? Okay. Now we'll go to... I'll call it out. Oh, sorry. 8-0. 9.1.1
Mr President?
is the first item to be debated. Councillor Amadei.
Mr Acting President, I move as per the officer's recommendation, and in moving that motion, just indicate my support to West Australian Local Government Association for their advocacy right across the state and all of the zones. There's been a lot of discussion on the changes, and given my involvement as the former Minister for Local Government going way back to 1995, the last two tranches of changes, tranche 1 and tranche 2...
Just before you continue, Councillor Amadei, can I have a seconder for that motion? Okay, Councillor De Campo. Thank you. Continue speaking in favour. Yeah.
Going back to the 1995 Act, the last two tranches of changes by the current government have been the most significant changes to that Act since 1995, and all of the items that have been addressed here within the agenda and the officer's comments I support. I think will make a significant change to local government. There's no doubt that there are local governments that are experiencing difficulties, and that the Department of Local Government has experienced difficulty in dealing with some of those issues to do with local government. So, in particular, the appointment of the inspector and mentors or monitors, I support strongly, and also the option to allow our council to decide whether we want to have our president elected at large or internally. I think they are all important democratic decisions that should be in the bailiwick of the local council. So I support the recommendation.
Thanks, councillor Amodei. Would anyone like to speak against that motion? Any other speakers for the motion? Okay, I move that motion be put. All those in favour? Can I see that again, please? Yep, 8-0. Thank you. Item 9.5.1. Application for retrospective approval.
Acting President, I'd like to move as per officer's recommendation with the removal of point 1.1 and point 2.
Okay, so is that...
That's the substantive.
That's the substantive. Okay, but with the removal. Okay. We've got a seconder? Mr Councillor Amodei, would you like to speak in favour of that?
I would, understand that I'm probably going to lose this debate. However, I wanted to have a debate about it anyway. So Karl Marx said reason has always existed, but not always in a reasonable form. And I think this is a great example of that quote, where we say to people, well, you need to be bushfire ready. You need to have a zone around your home, and you need to do various other things to protect yourself. And yet when somebody does that to protect themselves, whilst I agree, have not done it legitimately in the way that it should have been done, we then want to tell them to put trees back. Although they could potentially, as written in the item, have them removed later on if they put a big enough house application in. And then we say to them, well, we'll tell you how many trees we want you to remove, where there is no legitimate ruling around how much can be removed. It really is up to the proponent as to what they would like to remove. But because the average is what it is, they are only allowed to have the average removed. So again, when I go back to reason, I don't see the reason we should probably prosecute somebody for something that they could have legitimately done through a permit process or through an application process. And I don't see how we should tell them, and this would be the same debate I had years ago in Walpole, to be honest, when we had clearing issues down there. I don't really see how we should tell them how much we want them to clear when they've bought that property and can clear it. I don't, as far as I'm aware from questions this afternoon, there are no restrictions on what you can clear. It doesn't seem unreasonable, and the reality is that this probably wouldn't have been in front of us if somebody didn't come in and make a complaint about it in any case. So I go back to reason. I go back to the fact that we're actually paying $2,000 for DFARS, who collect $700,000 from our Shire through the Emergency Services Levy to go around and do a study in relation to accessibility in an emergency situation. We have somebody here, a proponent, who wants to protect themselves, and yet we seem to put up all the barriers when it's convenient for us. So I'd urge you to support this motion, if you will, for a little bit of reason and a little bit of common sense. I have asked, by the way, if there is anything else to this, because it does seem like we are going straight for prosecution. I do understand there's only a very small fine if we go the other way. However, we're in a cost of living crisis. We are crying out for housing. We are crying out for people to build in our Shire, and yet we seem to make it so difficult for them to do so. So I just ask you to consider those things when you consider prosecuting somebody, when you consider asking them to put 1,000 square metres of trees back in, which will take, a number of years to get to where they were, probably. And even in the report that came from the Department of Environment and Water, this has been a cleared area in the past already. It doesn't actually say in their letter to us that they may require some replanting. I've read it 3 times to make sure, but in the body of the report it says that they may. So that's, to me, slightly misleading in relation to that. So again, I urge you to support the motion for common sense and reason, as Karl Marx has said.
Councillor Amadei, would you like to speak for the motion?
Yes, I would, Mr Acting President. I'm reasonably conversant with Quenda Drive. In Northcliffe, majority of the timber is marri, but there's a lot of peppy and scrub in that subdivision. And I can understand why somebody would clear 4.5 acres, 4,500 square metres, which is an acre and a quarter in the old terms. A lot of people in our community still understand acres. Because it's been cleared without permission and above the normal amount that should be cleared, there is a recommendation for retrospective approval, but also to plant back 1,000 square metres. And 1,000 square metres is a quarter of an acre. In the overall scheme of things, it's not a very big area at all. And I can tell you this area, in this location, this subdivision, most of the blocks are of similar size. If there were to be a fire start in that area, it would burn like petrol, I can tell you. It's, the ground is very peaty, sandy country, and I could understand why somebody would want to have a reasonable clearance from their residence. And as I discussed earlier in questions on the agenda, you might recall in the eastern states, one of the major bushfires where the person who had cleared more than 20 metres around their residence was the only residence that survived in that locality. So the issue of bushfire is never more serious or prevalent than what it is now. So I think we need to have some compassion. You know, in the end, ignorance is not a defence under the law. I think we at this level understand that. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand that. And they've gone ahead and obviously cleared the land without the proper approvals. But I think we should allow them some compassion on the issue.
Anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Winfield?
Yeah, with respect to the members on the other side of the House, in the officer's report, it outlines the scheme provisions. The purpose of the rural residential zone is to provide low-density residential development in a rural setting consistent and compatible with adjacent land use activity, landscape and environmental attributes of the land. Consistent with this purpose, the scheme outlines the following objectives that are relevant to the application. Encourage the introduction of clearing land management controls, restrictions and environmental repair where appropriate. Facilitate the conservation of native vegetation, watercourses and water bodies and other environmental features, and where appropriate provide for environmental repair. And the comment from the officer, as reflected above, the protection of existing vegetation and requirement for environmental repair are key considerations in forming the management of rural residential land. In reply to the comment over there, most of the people that I'm familiar with who've moved to Quenda Way have moved because they like that environment. Now, if they choose to be in a high fire zone, that's their risk. But I understand that many people move there because of the environment that surrounds them.
Anyone else like to speak for the motion? And anyone else against the motion? Yep, comment please, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Councillors, just a procedural matter here. If this is voted on and voted down, there will effectively be no decision. So can I maybe suggest that somebody might want to foreshadow the officer's recommendation and you can consider amendments from there on?
Councillor Ivey?
I foreshadow that I will move the officer recommendation if this motion doesn't pass.
Do I need a second or anything for that? Okay, thank you. And so now I'll put the other one. Okay, so can I put the motion?
Sorry, Councillor De Campo.
Oh, Councillor De Campo,
Thank you.
sorry to close the debate.
Thank you. And they are all very relevant points from that side of the House or the chamber.
Taking sides now.
However, Councillor Amade makes some very valid points. And in fact, even in the letter that comes from Daniel Wong from the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation, it is that should any additional clearing for a building or structure be required or proposed, that clearing would likely be exempt under Regulation 5, Item 1 after development application is approved or is issued. And if you talk about rural residential, which is, yes, that is in the body of the text, if you look at the pictures on page 60 of the attachments, you certainly wouldn't consider that to be anything other than complete bush. It doesn't give the impression of rural. And when I think of rural, to me, I think of rural as being, potentially some open paddocks with some cleared land and other things. So, and in this particular subdivision, as Councillor Ahmed has said, there is the mix of forested area and cleared area. It would not be unreasonable to be ignorant to the process, particularly, I won't say that, but particularly if you don't understand the process, to be able to clear a building envelope when others have already done so. So I urge you, even with Councillor Winfield's objections, to look at page 60 of the attachments and find out that it's very thick and dense carry forest or a mixed species forest. Rural residential does give the impression that it is partially rural and you might have some semi-grassed areas. And the fact that even Department of Water and Environmental Regulation says that once a development approval is issued, that the clearing is likely to be exempt under Regulation 5. I'm guessing, this owner or some representative of the owner, as there's confusion, put the cart before the horse. And I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater just because they've done that. People are ignorant to the process. It's unfortunate, but that's the case. So I think if you add all of those other things, though, and the fact that... And I did visit Victoria after the Black Friday fires as a part of a Shire visit, and it is true that every house that had a cleared zone around it survived, and every one that didn't burnt to the ground. And yet we don't seem to, as I say, walk the walk. We just talk the talk, and we do it all the time. And then not only do we not talk the talk or walk the walk, we then throw the book at them for doing what we want them to do. Or we go out and pay $2,000 for a report that will sit on a shelf and gather dust. So I urge you to support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, so put the motion now with, as per Councillor De Campo, with 1.1 removed and 2 removed. All those in favour? 2, 3, 4, 5. Carried. 5-3. Against, sorry. 3. Okay, move to... what was that one? Where are we now? Is it 9.9.1? Is that where we're at? Page 52. Absolute. Manjimup Ray Park and Collier Street redevelopment project. Proposed application growing regions round 2. Someone to move this motion, please.
Move as per officer's recommendation, Mr. President.
Okay, I've got a seconder. Councillor Winfield. Would you like to speak in favour of the motion, Councillor De Campo? Anyone like to speak against the motion? Okay, so can we vote on the motion, please? All those in favour? 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8-0, thank you. 9.16.1. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot. Sorry, what have I done? 992. Sorry, jumped ahead. Proposed budget amendment feasibility study for establishment of off-road vehicle area, page 61. Someone like to move that motion?
Given you're looking my way,
Councillor
Mr.
De
President,
Campo.
I'll move as per officer's recommendation.
Move as per, seconder. Councillor Ivey. you like to speak in favour of the motion? Anyone like to speak? Councillor Ivey? Against? Okay, move the motion. All those in favour? 8-0. Thank you. Now, where are we? 9:15.1, is that correct? You got that right? 9:15.1, unconfirmed minutes of the Northbury Forest Park Advisory Committee meeting held 4th of September 2024. Councillor Ivey,
I move as per the officer's recommendation.
you got a seconder? Councillor De Campo, you'd like to speak to the motion? Anyone, Councillor De Campo, you want to speak to the motion? Anyone like to speak against? Okay, please vote for the motion. All those in favour? 8-0. 9:16.1, an absolute. Unconfirmed minutes of the Manjimup Heritage Park Advisory Committee.
I'd like to move an amended motion.
Okay. Please
Yep.
proceed.
I move that council, it's pretty much exactly the same as the officer's recommendation, but removing points 4 and 5, replacing them with amend the terms of reference of the Manjimup Heritage Park Advisory Committee to reflect the vacant position resulting from the resignation of Marie Manns. And 5, request the Chief Executive Officer to call for nominations for current representative and proxy vacancies on the Manjimup Heritage Park Advisory Committee.
Have we got a seconder for that?
I just have a question on that.
Sure.
Procedurally,
Yeah.
that's not a committee recommendation. So we've got a nomination from the committee here for that position. How do we sit? I'm not sure I sit that comfortable. I don't mind it, by the way. I'm just asking procedurally, how do we say we have committees to advise, then we go, well, we're not.
Yeah.
Through the chair, if I may, yeah, thank you. So the Chief Executive Officer technically is the only person that can advise the council in an agenda. So you need to take on board essentially the CEO's advice, but also the recommendation from the committee. So procedurally, it's okay. There's no issues with the governance process. When we unpack the explanation for this, it'll all become quite clear.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor De Campo. Would you like to speak in favour of your amendment, Councillor Ivey?
Yeah, just ask everyone supports this and just note the sudden passing of Francis Hull on the weekend and acknowledge him as a past employee with HAC of 17 years, a long-term community volunteer and a valued member of the community garden, land care and men's shed.
Okay. And would you like to speak in favour of the motion, Councillor De Campo? Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Anyone like to speak against the motion? So I'm going to move that amended motion. Thanks. All those in favour? 8-0. Thank you. 9:16.2. Unconfirmed minutes of the Walpole Town Activation Advisory Committee meeting on the 27th of August, my birthday. Would someone like to move that motion? Councillor?
I'd like to move as per the officer's recommendations.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Wilcox, seconder. Yeah, Councillor Wilcox. Are you concerned that she didn't stand up? Okay, thank you. That's okay. Remain seated, I think, Councillor Wilcox. We've got a seconder for that.
I'll second the motion.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Councillor Romaday. Okay, it's 1960. Anyone, would you like to speak in favour of that, Councillor Wilcox? Okay, Councillor Romaday. Okay, anyone against? Okay, all those in favour of the motion? 8-0. Yeah, okay. Okay, 9:16.3, unconfirmed minutes of the North Cliff Town Activation Advisory Committee on the 30th of August 2024. We've got someone who'd like to move.
I move as per the officer's recommendation.
Seconder? Someone? Thanks, Councillor Darren. Would you like to speak for it, Councillor Darren? Anyone against? All those in favour? Against?
Okay, no, I'm going for
Okay, 8-0. Is okay? Okay, all good. Okay, and where are we? No, 8-0, yeah. 9:16.4, unconfirmed minutes of the Reconciliation Action Plan Advisory Committee.
As per the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, councillor Winfield. Seconder, councillor Ivey. Councillor Winfield, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ivey, anyone speak against? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, 8-0. Okay, that brings us to the end of all the items on the board, I believe. To page 98, late reports. Neil,
Oh, yeah, sorry, there is one.
late reports?
Yeah, there is one, although it's confidential.
Okay, confidential late report, so we will deal with that when we,
I move that we go behind closed doors, Mr President.
now.
President.
We've got a couple more
Oh.
bits and then we'll go, if we can do that, please.
Oh, you don't want to do this part.
So we'll deal with the late reports when we get to item 14. Questions from members? Response to questions from members taken on notice? Nil. Questions from members? Nil. 12. I'm sorry.
We have an opportunity for questions
Oh.
from members now.
Sorry. Are there any questions from members?
Yes, Mr President.
Yes.
How old were you?
Councillor Campbell.
On 28.
65.
Thank you.
There you go. Got my seniors card. Free catching the bus. Okay, I think we can move on to item 12. Thank you. Motions for consideration at the following meeting. None. 13, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. Nothing. Okay. 14, this part of the meeting is closed to the public and to consider 14.1.1, lease conditions to the Gallery Hotel.
It's not automatically
Do we-
closed, Mr President. I need to move that we...
I don't have to go down to the, I was just reading that before I got to that. Okay, now I'll just do the public reading of the motions that have been carried by council while we were behind closed doors. The first one is that council note the report and acknowledge the Chief Executive Officer will continue to monitor compliance with this lease and to issue further default notices should this be necessary.
Mr President, needs to be
That
item.
was for item 14.1.1. For item 14.1.2. We determined and voted in favour that the council determine that clause 11 of the lease between the Shire of Manjimup and Manjimup Investments WA Proprietary Limited does not apply on the basis that the leasee is not considered to have met the necessary requirements of this clause. 2, include an amount of $113,134, this being the amount of all rent received from the leasee in respect of the lease years commencing on the first and second anniversaries of the commencement date of the lease, for consideration for reallocation to other purposes as part of the budget review process to be undertaken in November 2024. And the last item, which is 10.1.1, that council agree to, subject to a satisfactory budget allocation, to undertake the two-storey extension at the rear of 5D Brockman Street, Manjimup, including a lift, universal access toilet and kitchen space as shown in the attachment, 10.1, part 1. 2, request that the Chief Executive Officer call tenders for the construction of these works. 3, note that the final decision on whether to undertake these works will be made following assessment of tenders and if a suitable budget amendment is made to allocate sufficient funds for this project. Thank you. I think that's the end of that. Yeah. Okay. Applications for leave of absence. There are nil. There being no further business to discuss, I wish to thank you all in attendance and close the meeting at 6:14 p.m. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your help.